Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Thursday edition of the show, our last preview show of the week before the Bucs and the Giants play, and it might just be our most important episode yet because, folks, he's back. Mike Evans returns. Mike Evans practiced in full today. None of that half-ass stuff. He practiced in full. He is rip-roaring, ready to go. The hamstring's ready. And boy, oh boy, do the Bucs need him down the stretch. So the title of this, of course, as you see on the screen, is Mike Evans Returns. We're going to talk about the greatest offensive player in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history, maybe the greatest Bucs player in team history. We're going to talk a lot about him, have some other injury updates, and kind of further preview Bucs versus the G-Men. So a lot of fun stuff to get into. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague from PewterReport.com. We call him Sly. You may know him as Adam. It's Adam Slavan. How we doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. I see that you're energized by Celsius here on this Thursday show. I love it. And you know what else I love, Matt? This weather. This weather is really refreshing. You talk about fall football. You woke up this morning. It's in the 50s here in Tampa. Pretty nice. So really excited going down the stretch of the season and previewing this game and the return of Mike Evans.
Yeah, that kind of warmed my heart a little bit for sure. We're in the type of weather now where, like, 1 second it's a little bit too cold and maybe you put on that quarter zip or jacket or sweatshirt or whatever you got on. And then as soon as you put it on, 5 minutes later, it's a little too warm. And then you're thinking, do I take it off? Do I leave it on? Do I stay a little bit uncomfortable? Do I stay a little bit chilly? I'm not exactly sure. But that's the best weather to be, and I'm very excited about that. Very excited for this weekend. We're getting some of that fall weather, northeast weather, a little Midwest weather as well. So very excited for that. And hopefully, the Bucs have been ice cold playing in warm weather. Maybe in a weird way, playing in cooler weather will warm them up with, how bad they've been over the past couple of games, losing 4 in a row, getting to that hole of 4-6. Got a lot to get to on this show, but we'd be remiss if we didn't start off by giving a shout out to some new Pewter Report YouTube channel members. First off, Payne Gusto. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for joining. And Jack Singer. Fa la 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 la, coming in right at the right time with the holidays around the corner. Thank you very much, Jack, for becoming a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. Payne Gusto watching us right now. Says, first live I've caught in weeks. Hashtag go Bucs. Well, there's no time like the present. Payne Gusto, thank you so much for watching us right now. Thank you so much for being a Pewter Report YouTube channel member. So, the big news of the day, let's just get right into it. Mike Evans fully participated. We saw him out there yesterday. He came out late. He was walking here and there. Today, he came out later, but not as late as he did the day before. And, took a little bit longer to warm up, as I think he will for the rest of the season, as he kind of does at this point anyway, because he's over 30 years old and a veteran of the team. And he doesn't need to warm up with everybody else if he doesn't want to, but he is still a team guy. And then started running quicker and faster routes today than he did the practice before. It's on our Instagram channel right now, and some of our other social media if you want to check out Mike Evans running and warming up in training camp. And then as the injury report just came out, we can talk a little bit about the injury report later on too, because we have some super chats based around it. He was a full go. So Adam, what does this do for the Buccaneers offense as they go and take on the Giants?
Yeah, I think it really allows them to open up the playbook a little bit more, having Mike Evans back, because you look at last game that they played against the 49ers, where they only had 116 passing yards. None of the wide receivers were really able to get much going. And so I think having Mike Evans back, obviously, it reopens a lot of different things within the offense, having that red zone threat. But what intrigued me most, we kind of discussed Liam Cohen's comments today, is that he doesn't really see him being utilized in more deep routes in his return, and kind of using him in different ways to maybe keep him going and using more like short and medium routes. I don't think you want to test that hammy running full go routes the first game back. But what I think he does as he opens things up for Baker Mayfield to really get going, continue the success he's had, and then with that, maybe open up the running game a little bit more. I don't think on Sunday you're going to see a big aerial day just because of the Giants pass rush. That's their
Yeah.
strong suit. So I think Mike Evans back, though, he does add a much needed spark to this team.
Yeah, without a doubt. If anything, it just brings like inspiration. Not that, coming back from a hamstring injury after 4 weeks is like the most inspiring thing of all time, but just of like, hey, our captain's with us. We already lost one of our leaders with Chris Godwin. Nothing can do that, but we have Mike Evans back. In a way, he's a security blanket as well. Like, he's not just a third down guy. Clearly, he's, a top receiver in this league when fully healthy. But it inspires hope. It inspires the way that this offense can function, where it's not going to be on one person's shoulders. It's not even all going to be on Mike's shoulder. But, of course, it gives another safety valve for Baker Mayfield. So he maybe doesn't have to run as much as he has been. And it lets Cade Otton get less attention on him. And Cade Otton's been fantastic since Mike Evans has gone out of the lineup. Chris Godwin too, but again, he's out for the year, so we don't really have to talk about Chris anymore, as much as it breaks my heart. And Cade Otton, I think more than anyone else, has stood out the most amongst the receivers, the running backs, the tight ends. Cade Otton's been that top guy. So having Mike Evans back, just opening up a couple of more things for Cade Otton, I think will be big. Maybe Sterling Shepard being wide receiver 2 instead of wide receiver 1 can help out a lot. And most importantly, it gives you an overall threat. Now, as you mentioned, Liam Cohen talked about today, maybe Mike's not that, deep threat down the field because you want to keep his hamstring, somewhat okay and not that bad. But at the same time, if he's out there, he's not just going to be wanting a run route. Like, maybe he will be a decoy here and there, but I don't think Mike has, worked his way back from this injury, working on the bye week, all that stuff. I don't think he's coming back just to be a decoy.
Yeah,
no. Or else he would have just sat out another week. Of course, we can't talk about Mike and his return without also mentioning the streak that is hanging in the balance right now. Well, one streak he wants to continue. He currently has 10 seasons with 1,000 yards. It's the most consecutive seasons to begin a career with 1,000 yards every season. He wants to tie Jerry Rice this year if he were to get 1,000 yards this time around. That would be 11 straight seasons with 1,000 yards. That would tie the record with Jerry Rice. Right now, he's at 335, Adam. So is there a realm of possibility that Mike Evans can break this record or get this record?
I think for sure there's a realm of possibility that he gets to 1,000 yards. I myself, I don't see that as being too likely, even with the favorable schedule that lies ahead with the Giants, the Panthers twice. The Chargers, they have a great defense, but then you got the Cowboys and the Saints. I mean, you look at the schedule, 6 of the remaining 7 games, theoretically, are favorable games for Mike Evans to really pick it up and get his receiving yards. But Matt, when you look at it so far this year, even with Chris Godwin and the offense alongside him, Mike Evans' season high is 94 receiving yards. He would need an average of 95 a game to get to that 1,000-yard mark, like just to reach that. And I think with the way that this offense has really operated, they've kind of changed the way that Mike is utilized. And with Chris Godwin, when he did fill that Cooper Kupp role, you saw him as really the priority. And I don't think they're going to push Mike to be that priority to the point where it negatively affects the offense. And I think that's what it would do if you're just pushing Mike to get that 1,000 yards. Like, hey, Mike Evans, you're 31. We're going to run you down the field every play, target you 10 to 12 times just to get that mark. I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help Mike. It doesn't help Baker or really the offense or the team as a whole, because I still, even though Jamel Dean is coming back and, you had the bye week to recalibrate, as Todd Bowles continues to say over and over and over again, I still don't know how much this Bucs defense is going to be fixed. And on top of that, like, they could go out and play a good game on Sunday, and I hope they do. But how much will we learn about the Bucs defense with Tommy DeVito in at quarterback and playing against a bad overall team outside of, Tyrone Tracy at running back and Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. So I still think that's a long way of me saying I still think that the offense is going to be the catalyst, the mover and shaker of this team, and the reason why if the Bucs get out of this hole and get on a winning streak, it still will be the offensive side of the football that is namely getting that done. So Mike not being a deep threat is still fine for the offense themselves. I mean, that's why you have Trey Palmer. Sterling Shepard can do it. McMillan can do it if he ever comes back. And I know he's coming back from a hamstring injury as well. But, I mean, whose hamstring would you rather preserve? Mike Evans or Jalen McMillan? I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. What I don't want to see, and we kind of talked about this on yesterday's show, is I don't want Baker and Liam Cohen, but more Baker than anything else. I don't want them force-feeding Mike the football because that's where the mistakes will come in. And this Giants team does not have a lot of interceptions. They have one interception on the whole damn year. You don't want
not
to
even
give
by a
them
secondary.
So you don't even want to give them like the thought process of, oh, okay, we could take advantage of this and get a couple of turnovers. So as it stands right now, Mike Evans is at 335 receiving yards. He has 7 games to go to get 1,000. That means he's 665 away. Right now, that puts his average of it would need to be 95 yards per game for the rest of the season. That's not easy to do. Like you mentioned, they play the Chargers. Obviously, the games themselves dictate a lot of different things. The defense dictates coverage. A lot of people are going to be paying attention to Mike Evans on the defensive side of the ball, not just for the Giants, but for other opponents. So it's not going to be easy. However, if there's one thing that can help out Mike Evans is that pretty much every single year of his career, he has what I like to call a monster game where he essentially goes bonkers and gets like over 170 yards. He's done it for pretty much his whole career. If you look at his last 6 seasons, in 5 out of those 6 years, he's had a game with 170 receiving yards or more in a game. The only time he didn't over the last 6 years was in 2021. He had a 113-yard game. So it was 171 last year in week 2 at home against the Bears. 2022, he had 207 against the Panthers. 2021, 113. That was week 5 against the Dolphins. That was an ass-kicking that game. 2020 had 181 yards in week 16 against the Lions. That was another game that was a blowout. I think Mike also caught a touchdown pass from Blaine Gabbert in that game. Mike and Gronk both had touchdown passes from Blaine Gabbert, who came and played the fourth quarter. 2019, he had 198 yards in a week 8 game against the Titans. And in 2018, he had 179, also in week 8, but that time against the Bengals. So if you took the average of those 5 monster games, so just exclude the 2021 game where he had 113, that average comes out to essentially 187 yards. So if you were to get 187 yards, let's just say in this next game against the Giants, that has him at 522 yards on the season, 478 to go. That immediately drops his average per game from 95 to 80. So it's not like, obviously, like it's not easy to just get 187 yards in a game, but it is possible for what Mike has done, given his history as a receiver. He's done it a lot against the Panthers as well. Like there are some other stats, not even from his top ratings, but 2 seasons ago against the Panthers, he had the 200-yard game. He had another one that was like 175 yards, and he does play the Panthers twice. No Marshawn Lattimore as well. So
that's a good point.
187, not easy, but if he could do that in one game and knock the rest of the receiving yards down from 95 to 80, the Bucs may get to a point where they can get some blowout games, or I don't know, by the grace of gods, the Falcons choke the rest of the season and the Bucs win out in some crazy fashion. They don't have to play much in week 18. That could be a game where you just pepper Mike and like pad his stats more than anything else, and maybe he gets over 1,000 yards. So it's a long ways away, but as Justin Bieber once said, never say never. And the one
Oh
person I'm
boy.
not going to count out is the big fighting fan, the UFC fan, Mike Evans. So don't count out Mike Evans just yet.
Yeah, and I think you make some great points there, Matt. One other one I wanted to point out, Fox Sports' Greg Allman, he posted something on X where the past 5 games that Evans has played against the Giants, he scored a touchdown, and he's been really productive. The one game that he didn't was back in 2015. He had 8 catches for 150 yards, and you put together his production against the Giants over a full season, that's over 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns. So you talk about a game where he could potentially get like back on track and have that monster game in New York. This you could circle it on the calendar as one where he could really get right. The only concern though I have is that how much will he see the field? Liam Cohen today, he said, I don't know, like how much that Mike will be
Yeah.
good to go. And that's a little bit concerning. You kind of wonder, like, hey, is he going to play 60% of the snaps, 70%? That's obviously going to be a big factor. But Matt, I want to ask you, so let's say Mike, the offense runs 60 snaps and Mike's
Yeah.
out there for 40 of them. What does the rest of that wide receiver room look like? When you have guys like Sterling Shepard, hey, maybe he has a revenge game in New York. Ryan
Yeah.
Miller, he has some value as a run blocker. Who else is in the mix there, and who's maybe the odd man out?
Yeah, that's a good question because we don't know about Jalen McMillan just yet. Like, does McMillan, if he's able to return, does he automatically move up the ladder? Or, as we've heard kind of behind the scenes, a lot of people weren't happy with how he kind of got ready for the past couple of games and wasn't able to go after testing out the hamstring injury. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be a punishment. However, like on paper, when you have everybody healthy, it was Mike, Chris, and Jalen McMillan. And McMillan
Yeah.
was playing around the same number of snaps than Mike and Chris. Those two would have a little bit more, understandably. They're the top 2 guys on this team, but they would all be in the 70% range. So moving forward, and again, this is self-scouting, looking at the tape, seeing what you got, seeing what you have. They've leaned on Ryan Miller a fair amount. I'm not saying Ryan Miller's going to be wide receiver 2. I think they would leave it as Shepard wide receiver 2, and then some type of combination of Ryan Miller and Rakim Jarrett. Because when Rakim Jarrett first came back, it was a lot more Trey Palmer and a lot less Rakim. But then the healthier Rakim got, it pretty much they flip-flopped. And Jarrett got the higher amount of snaps over Rakim Jarrett. So I think that's going to over Jarrett got more than Trey Palmer, excuse me. So I still like Trey Palmer, but really none of them have showed up in those situations where you need them to. The Bucs like Ryan Miller for whatever reason. He seems to get open. He does a lot of the dirty work that I think not a ton of wide receivers do. But I think that might be how they look at it moving forward, at least for next game.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would say with what you just mentioned there, that Trey Palmer is probably the odd man out in that case, because Rakim Jarrett has at least showed more of an ability. He had that one game where he came along late in the game, had some big catches, but Trey Palmer, for his speed and just the ability to like blaze past guys, he really hasn't done that. And I think with Ryan Miller, what's really allowed him to see the field, he even caught a touchdown, like he has Baker Mayfield's trust, is just the ability to kind of be a run blocker. And like the game against the 49ers where things weren't going in the passing game, at least they could count on him for that. And I think that you're probably going to see on both sides of the ball a very run heavy game when you have even with Mike Evans back. I expect all 3 running backs to probably see the field for the Bucs. And then for the Giants with Tommy DeVito, Tyrone Tracy's probably going to have a big day. He's had 2 100-yard games in the past 3 games. So I think what this game is going to come down to, and we can kind of talk about that, is who dictates the time of possession and who really wins in the trenches, because I don't think this game is going to be won through the air.
I think it can be for the Bucs, because even when they have a good running game, like Liam Cohen will be steady with it for a while and then just decide to abandon it at random times. And I don't necessarily know why. I think the best case for the Bucs, I mean, you always want to like have a lead, duh. But for a team like the Giants that's going through some turmoil right now, I mean, every single day there's like a new update with the quarterback situation and who's unhappy that who's playing and all this different stuff. But Tommy DeVito, it's a small sample size, 6 games that he started, 8 games overall. He has showed that he doesn't really sling it, like throwing it deep or anything like that. He's had one game where he threw for over 200 passing yards. And he had the big win against the Packers, but the other 2 were against New England, not a very good team. He lost to the Saints. He lost to the Eagles. Tommy DeVito's not a guy that's really going to lead a big-time comeback. It's got to be close. It's either got to be a one-possession game, tied, or the Giants are winning. So the Bucs go up 2 touchdowns, even with as porous as the Buccaneers defense has been. I think that might still be too much to overcome for Tommy DeVito. And it's a little bit different. Last year had Saquon Barkley. This year he's got Malik Neighbors, great wide receiver target, super, super talented. But that guy still needs to get open. Tommy DeVito still needs to avoid a pass rush, and Neighbors needs to beat the coverage on the play. I don't necessarily know if Tommy DeVito can do that. That's not exactly his strength. So, yeah, they probably will try to run the football as much as they can. And that's kind of come on in the in the later stages as well. Like, Tracy only got his moment when Devin Singletary got hurt.
Yeah.
And when Singletary got hurt, that became the big moment for Tyrone Tracy. Speaking of getting hurt, we will talk about the injury report in just a moment. But first, we got to talk about our friends over at Celsius. Of course, Celsius is the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. They have tons and tons of great flavors. My personal favorite is the Arctic Vibe. Love the tropical vibe as well. Check out some of their newest flavors like the sparkling watermelon lemonade as well. If you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address and they'll tell you the closest place where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a health and fitness store, a Publix, a Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more, you can buy it in bulk. I'd recommend the variety pack because there's so many fantastic flavors of Celsius. You could try them all. And with Amazon, that's Subscribe and Save. You can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you drink Celsius Energy Drinks, the official energy drinks of pewterreport.com. All right, the injury report, and then we'll get to the super chats. A lot of them are based around said injury report. Just came out before for the Tampa Bay football Buccaneers. Ben Bredesen, full participant with a shoulder. Jamel Dean, hamstring, full. Mike Evans practicing full, like we talked about, with the hamstring. Greg Gaines practiced in a limited capacity today. He did not practice yesterday as he deals with a foot injury. Will Golston, knee, full go. Troy Hill, this is another one to pay attention to. He's on the injury report with an ankle and foot injury. He did not practice yesterday. He was limited today. Of course, the Bucs just activate a corner to the active roster, and he already can't play. We'll see how he is for Sunday's game. Bucky Irving fully participated once again with that toe.
Wow.
Zy McCollum, hamstring, did not participate. We'll get to that in just a moment. Jalen McMillan, hamstring, fully participated. Tyke Smith, this was another one to pay attention to. Knee injury, did not practice. He was limited yesterday, did not practice today. Could just be a day off. And then Tristan Wirfs, knee/foot, once again, limited in practice. We spoke to him in the locker room after. For the Giants, linebacker Matt Adams, knee was full. Wide receiver Bryce Ford Wheaton, Achilles was limited. Theo Johnson, the tight end, back full. Dexter Lawrence, limited. Darius Musow, limited. Tyler Newbin, limited. Drew Phillips, hip, full. Calvion Thibodeau, wrist, practicing full. Greg Van Roten, abdomen, full. And Darius Slayton, the wide receiver, concussion, practiced in full as well. So a lot to discuss there, but we'll let the super chats dictate that conversation. Let's start it off with a couple of $2 super chats from Eric Moreno. Thank you very much, Eric, who says, just saw Tyke Smith did not practice after limited yesterday. And Eric follows that up with another $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Says, heard Zion ran on a separate field. That's progress. So starting off with Tyke Smith, let's remember, he got injured in that Friday practice right before the San Francisco game. There was a lot of swelling. He was unable to go, had the bye week. Coming into this week, in my opinion, I think it's just more of a, hey, let's use this as a precaution. Let's sit him for a day. We'll bring him back on Friday. Zion McCollum, this one's frustrating. I'm not frustrated at Zion specifically, but it was a hamstring tweak. He even told Peter Report Scott Reynolds, like, he'll be good to go in 2 weeks. Hasn't practiced the last 2 days. He's been outside there, but not really doing anything. He did run individually. It was a lot of like high knees, stretching out the legs, the groin, all that stuff. He didn't really do much sprinting.
Yeah.
However, in the locker room, they have this like dart game. It's kind of like cornhole, but darts instead of like bags. And he hit the game-winning shot. So he must be
Best
feeling
moment.
in a pretty must be feeling in a pretty good mood from there. But it's just like, come on, man. Finally, you got Jamel Dean back, and all of a sudden now your other corner's hurt.
Yeah, it's a lot like last year where Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, both of them just couldn't stay healthy at the same time. And now you have Zion McCollum probably looking to not on a good track. I would say he's probably not going to play. The fact that he didn't participate in the past 2 days, usually when that happens, unless there's a drastic turnaround tomorrow, I don't think he plays on Sunday, Matt. I don't know how you see that, but I do think Jamel Dean is going to be back. And hopefully he replaces McCollum's spot, but then it raises a question again with Funderburk and Josh Hayes. Can the defense really rely on their contributions in stopping a lot of the Giants wide receivers? I mean, there isn't just Malik Neighbors, but Darius Slayton's had a pretty solid year. Wan'Dale Robinson, who Liam Cohen actually coached back in Kentucky in 2021. He's been more of that slot guy. There's a lot of weapons that they potentially have to stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest show on turf. They are 2-8
Yeah.
for a reason, and a good amount of that
Very true.
is the offense for sure. But yeah, they're not pushovers by any means. If you take them lightly, the Giants will take advantage of it. Yeah, it's a concern. I mean, we'll see with Zion tomorrow. I mean, they could just be taking it super, super easy and kind of just getting him ready. But I think this has to be a situation where if the Bucs are in a situation that it's not going to be Zion McCollum, you can't go with Tyreek Funderburk. You can't go with Josh Hayes. I think it has to be Troy Hill. You don't feel necessarily good about it. He's only, he's been on the practice squad for a little bit, just got activated. We know Todd Bowles, has the most rigorous defensive class to study of all time because clearly no one can understand it. No one can be prepared for it. But he is a guy that's been in the league for like over a decade now. I guess in this situation where the defense has been so bad and you have to try someone, at this point, I think you're better off with Hill or a veteran guy versus what you've seen in the production from Funderburk and with Josh Hayes.
Yeah, and then the other question that would arise, though, is so we addressed the cornerback position, but that nickel corner spot with Tyke, let's say if Tyke can't go, you have to put Izzy in there, and then if McCollum can't go, I mean, there's a lot of question marks that still need to obviously be answered going into tomorrow's practice, but man, if 2 of the top 3 guys in the secondary are down, I mean, Tommy DeVito isn't a world beater by any means, but there's a chance that he can find success distributing the football. And in a lot of ways, with the way that the Giants defense presents a challenge, it kind of reminds me of the Broncos game, just a little bit.
Yeah, slightly. I see where you're coming with that. So if Smith wasn't able to go, I think what we'd see is Christian Izien would likely, I think, especially since Mike Edwards just got there, but I think Izien would probably be your primary slot/nickel corner, and then maybe on third down, even though Izien's like solid in coverage,
Mm-hmm.
I think again to get that spark to maybe try to goad Tommy DeVito into something. You bring in Mike Edwards for third down to make the interception or the splash play. So I think the direct differences you'll see is if there's no Zion, bam, you go to Troy Hill. And if there's no Tyke Smith, bam, Christian Izzian's in there, which we've seen before. That wouldn't be shocking. And then Mike Edwards is kind of like, do everything type of situation. Because we could also see, again, part of bringing Edwards in is, you can go to that dime package and get KJ Britt off the field. It makes it tougher not having Tyke Smith specifically, but you could kind of still get away with it if you had Edwards on the field with Whitehead, with Winfield, Izzian in the slot, and then the two corners. And then you get a chance to put Jordan Whitehead in the box a little bit more if you wanted to do that as well instead. And maybe Whitehead's kind of like your slot guy, but he's more of just like an extra linebacker. You help stop the run, which the Giants are going to want to do more, as we kind of talked about before. And, you let the secondary kind of do their thing. So, yeah, a lot of options, a lot of different puzzle pieces to go for when it comes to the Buccaneers. Let's get to the super chat from Paul Bowen. Thank you very much, Paul, for this $4.99 super chat. That's very, very nice of you. Paul says, just traded CeeDee Lamb for Mike. He's going to lead my fantasy team to the promised land. Fire the cannon. So that is a great trade, Paul. I am curious, is this just like every year you draft new players type of league? Is it a dynasty league? Because if it's a dynasty league, I don't know about that trade unless you're going all in. But if it's just for the season, that's a fantastic trade because the Cowboys stink. They're going to be blown out in a ton of games to the point where they're just not going. Okay, he says redraft after. So, yeah, I think it's a great trade because Mike's going to become the top target immediately. He already was, but now he just gets that even more. It's Cooper Rush showing a CeeDee Lamb. So, yeah, he may still have a couple of good moments, but he's not going to be the production that everybody wanted. CeeDee Lamb got taken first in a lot of the fantasy football drafts I was in.
I took him.
Hell yeah, I think that's a great trade. And regardless, I know we talked about going down the field and what Mike can do in that aspect. Well, damn, if they're in the red zone, that's where Mike's the best. And, he only has to run 10 to 15 yards down the field. So I don't know how you feel about this one, Adam, but I think that's a top-notch trade for Paul Bowen.
That's something I might have to consider because I have CeeDee Lamb and then my other wide receivers, Malik Neighbors. But that's a great point. I mean, trading for Mike Evans right now, kind of a buy low, but albeit CeeDee Lamb right now is probably a sell low with Cooper Rush. But I liked it. It's a bold move, but it could be a winning move.
The schedule is important as well. Good point from Paul Bowen. And then we have super chat from David Van Dunn. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, David.
Very, very much, David, with the $4.99 super chat says, was just thinking, why in the world do we waive Merriweather instead of Hayes for Troy Hill? Well, Hayes does some stuff on special teams, which is pretty good. I mean, so does Merriweather, but they like Hayes on special teams. I think he's a better option right now than Tyreek Funderburg, even though not a great option. And with Mike Edwards in the mix, it kind of allows the Bucs to maneuver a little bit more with safety than maybe necessarily at corner, especially with the Zion injury now and, how delicate Jamel Dean has been over the past couple of seasons. So I think it's just more roster construction than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree. As soon as they brought in Mike Edwards, I mean, Kayvon Merriweather's days, he wasn't really seeing the field like he was down the stretch last year. It does bring up the question, though, when Zion McCollum and Jamel Dean are both healthy, who's the odd man out at cornerback? Would it be Josh Hayes or Funderburg? I think for the reason you mentioned, Hayes is probably the last guy in the depth chart there. But the Bucs have lost now 2 members of their secondary claimed by other teams' practice squads. Keenan Isaac with the Raiders, Merriweather now with the Lions. It's like if they waive Funderburg, let's say, if he's claimed and another injury came up, it might be a tougher spot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they would have to add. Like if they have to sign another player, because all these guys are on the roster at the moment. So if they had to sign another player, is that because an O lineman went on IR or a D lineman went on IR, then that spot would naturally open. But yeah, it would probably be Hayes or Hill to be or Funderburg to be the top guys to get waived and then try to sign back to the practice squad. I'm pretty sure that's probably what the Bucs wanted to do with Kayvon Merriweather, especially since he was on the team last year and was on it for most of this season. If you're Merriweather, though, not the worst, not the worst plan to go to the Detroit Lions, who only have one loss on the season, to the Bucs, ironically, and play with a couple of other Bucs, Pat O'Connor over there, Carlton Davis. So not the worst move for Kayvon Merriweather. Also, what a season for Keenan Isaac. On the Bucs for a lot of it, on the Panthers active roster for like a week for a brief cup of coffee, back to the Buccaneers, and now with the Las Vegas Raiders, where they play the Raiders in 2 weeks. And if he's on the active roster there, he'll be back in Tampa for that game. Or who knows? He might end up on the Bucs one more time. So that'll be very interesting to see. It'd also be very interesting and lovely if all of you guys joined us for the Pewter pregame show, which is taking place on Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning. It'll be myself and Scott Reynolds previewing Bucs versus Giants. We'll talk about some specific matchups for that one. And then at 1 o'clock, it'll be the Pewter game day. Myself and Josh Capo, we live watch the whole game. We give our reactions and instant analysis to every single thing that happens. We kind of break down what was spoken about during the week in the locker room. Josh is one of the best X's and O's guys across the land, really, when it comes to breaking down tape. And he's great with the salary cap, too, which is why tomorrow, for Friday's Pewter Insider, if you are a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, if you're a Premier member or a Platinum member, you can join us at 1:30. It'll be me and Josh Capo. We're going to talk the Bucs 2025 salary cap and how the Bucs are going to maneuver through it. Do they have enough room? Do they have to make more room? How are they going to re-sign Chris Godwin? So we'll talk about that. Of course, if you write in a question, we will answer that. If you join us live and you have specific salary cap stuff, even if it's not about the Bucs, if it's about other things, that's right in the wheelhouse of Josh, and we very much
that's going to be a great discussion.
Yeah, going to be a lot of fun. So very much looking forward to it. And thanks to all of our Pewter Report YouTube channel members, whether you're a Platinum and Premier member or a member at any time. We really appreciate it. All right, another injured player we got to talk about, Adam, is Tristan Wirfs. So Wirfs has been out there the past 2 days. He's got the knee brace on. He comes out after everybody warms up, but he has participated in some drills, not like the whole 11-on-11 type of stuff, but he's moving there a little bit. We actually got to speak to him today. I was not expecting to get to talk to Tristan Wirfs. Typically an injured guy, doesn't chat as much, but he's a leader on this team. He's one of the most active speakers on this team as well when it comes to talking to the media. What were your thoughts on what Tristan Wirfs had to say and how he's feeling going into this week?
I think it can be summed up with one phrase he said, and that was the tree trunks remain undefeated. That's what Justin School told him. And with Tristan Wirfs, very surprised he was out there practicing and even getting in some reps. Instead of just sitting like on the wayside watching the other guys get in, he wasn't doing every single rep, but he was doing a lot of them. And it was encouraging to see him move, although I don't think he's yet 100%. And I don't even think he's probably 80% at this point. And so that's a little bit concerning. I don't think they want to throw him out there on Sunday afternoon going up against that Giants pass rush. I can kind of understand both coins to that argument, but with Wirfs, I think he's trending in the right direction, Matt. And I think that he's probably, if he's not going this game, he'll probably be the next game against the Panthers, although they have a weaker pass rush. I don't know. I just wouldn't rush him back just because of the matchup. I think you try to preserve him the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think if this was, say, like a Week 16 game, maybe you risk it and you try to get him to play. But the fact that, it's only Week 12, the Bucs' 11th game of the season coming up. There's still a lot more time where, hey, I mean, they won with Justin School in, beating the Detroit Lions. That wasn't easy to do. I respect that he's out there, and at least Bucs fans can have a peace of mind that it's not going to be a crazy long-term injury.
Right.
The fact that he's already out there, the fact that he's already speaking in front of cameras and stuff and like that, and he said, "Oh, I'm feeling good. I'm pretty good." Like, obviously, he's letting it on a little bit, but the fact, and we were out there today, Adam. I'm not saying he was moving at 100%, but he was moving much better than I expected him to. Well, what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought so too. The fact like he just suffered that injury and he was moving the way he was. I mean, kind of
Yeah.
like Vita Vea did. He's built different, Tristan Wirfs, and just seeing him move around and be so mobile out there, like you mentioned, very encouraging. And he's going to be back at some point. Again, probably not this week, but if it's next week, I mean, all things considered, when you looked at that injury originally, you're fearing the worst. You're fearing that he's going to be out for the year. Like that's a horrifying image for Bucs fans. But the fact that he's coming back and he's practicing in the capacity that he is, very encouraging to see.
Tristan even said he was like, on Sunday night, I watched a replay over 1,000 times. He said I was scared, and that's where the tree trunk quote came into play. And then he went in on Monday, and the diagnosis wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be, and I think that helped him. And, Tristan's been very open about, like, last year. I'll always remember when he talked about like the mental struggles he had about just putting the pressure on himself going from right tackle to left tackle. I can only imagine this is a very different situation, but thinking, oh my God, like I may have a serious long-term injury, maybe the biggest injury of his whole career. I know he got hurt in 2021, but was able to bounce back. Like I'm sure he was probably very restless on Sunday night going into Monday, and then to get that somewhat good news, even though it's bad news overall, not being able, having a sprained knee, you don't feel 100%. I mean, he even said like, all right, I was ready to go into the weight room. Like the bye week, he said we weren't going anywhere. So he was just going to, stick around in Tampa, get his lifts in the weight room. I'm not saying overall this is a thumbs up because you're still going to be without Tristan Wirfs. But I mean, leave it to Tristan to be the guy in high spirits, even though he's got a knee injury. So good for him for always taking the glass half full type of approach. And of course, in his spot will be Justin School. How do we feel about Justin School coming in and starting for this game?
Probably more confident than the Lions game when he was going up against Aiden Hutchinson on the right side. You're a little bit more confident in his ability as a left tackle. But I saw this graphic on X today and had to point it out. So it mentioned how successful offensive tackles were, like being on an island. And you had Tristan Wirfs on one end of the spectrum as one of the most elite tackles. You can just plug and play him there, never have to have another tight end or running back really add extra protection. But on the other end, the guy who's been on the island the least, under half the time he's been on the field, is Justin School. And when he was playing at right tackle, you had a lot of the tight ends and running backs shifting over there to kind of add an extra chip block. And now he's going to be on the left side. You can't really do that as much. And he's going up against Brian Burns, who's had 6 sacks this year, and he's still posing a threat. So I'm a little bit worried that the pocket is not going to be as protected for Baker Mayfield as it has been pretty much all season. I think he's only been sacked like 8 times or something like that. They've done a really good job keeping him protected throughout the season, but in this game, I don't see that being the case as much. I think there's going to be times where Baker Mayfield is knocked down to the ground.
Yeah, and even when the team was healthy, that's happened with Baker. Sometimes he holds on to it too long. Sometimes receivers just aren't open, and that's where we've gotten a lot of Baker moments. It was so funny because I was watching some football. Obviously, the Bucs didn't play on Sunday. And I was watching some games where the quarterback's running and he's got the stiff arm out and he's still trying to throw it. And the people I'm with are going, Baker Mayfield, like trying to do that same exact play. So that kind of became a viral moment. But you had just mentioned being on an island before. We're going to be on some islands over in the Bahamas on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers cruise.
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa!
on the Bucs Cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs Cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr!
Arr.
We are so excited for the Bucs cruise that's coming up March 7th through the 10th. So that's the dates that the cruise are going on. But, folks, listen to me very, very closely. You only got until December 1st to get your cabin solidified for the Bucs cruise. That's right, December 1st. That's the last day you can do it. So go to TampaBayBucsCruise.com or 800-975-7112 to reserve your cabin for the Bucs cruise. You're going to have Yaya Diaby. You're going to have Jordan Whitehead. You'll probably have Rashad White. Tristan Wirfs has been on this cruise before. A number of Bucs. You're going to get Bucs legends like Mike Allstott, the A-Train. Derek Brooks is going to be there. Pewter Report's going to be there. We know you want to be with the athletes, but in the couple of times you're not around the Bucs players, come hang out with pewterreport.com. I think we'll be doing a live podcast or some type of show out there. We'll go to the bar. We'll chat about the Bucs. We'll talk about things that we can't say on the podcast. So you'll get your own in-depth show, conversation, everything over on the Bucs cruise. It starts in Key West in Florida, then goes to Bimini in the Bahamas. March 7th through the 10th, but you have until December 1st to reserve your cabin. There's going to be, VIP parties, a welcoming party, pool, volleyball, one of the funnest things you can do, and a ton of other fun events over at the Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise. So one last time, go to TampaBayBucsCruise.com to reserve your cabin, or give them a call at 800-975-7112. Very much looking forward to that. Looking forward to this game on Sunday because for the first time in a while, it feels like a game where the Bucs can win and they can be the favorite. And I don't know, that's just because the way the schedule has been. But man, I feel like we're just doing a carbon copy of last season. 2023, you lost 4 in a row, then you won 4 in a row. I feel like we're about to see that in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at the next 3 games, they should be the favorite in all 3. And if they win all 3, you kind of look at last year when they started to go on a roll. The roller coaster, it was going down, started to go up again. And they would be back over 500. And then you're a lot more optimistic and looking at the rest of the schedule and potentially seeing a path to 10, 11 wins. And I think Sunday is a prime opportunity to really get the train rolling. I mean, you're going up against a team playing a third-string quarterback that's averaged 15.6 points a game. They have 2 playmakers on offense in Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy. But you wonder with Malik Neighbors, is he going to be stunted by having Tommy DeVito throwing him the football? And then at that point, you're going up against a below-average offensive line trying to stop Tyrone Tracy. And so I definitely think it's a get-right game. But Matt, I do want to ask you, so we've talked a lot about the Giants' pass rush. Is this an opportunity in a game for the Bucs pass rush to maybe get back on track? Because without Andrew Thomas there, that they have a journeyman left tackle. At right tackle, you have Evan Neal, who struggled mightily since being drafted in 2022. Can Yaya Diaby, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka maybe get a sack or 2?
I think Yaya Diaby can. And again, we have to remember this is, no offense to the Giants, but this is lesser competition. And let's remember that game against the Eagles a couple of weeks ago. And the Eagles are not lesser competition. I mean, hell, they're 8-2. They're, they're fighting with the Lions for the top seed in the NFC. But that game specifically, the Eagles were banged up as hell. They did not have their top 2 wide receivers. They didn't have Lane Johnson. They had a number of injuries along the offensive line. And what happened? The Bucs ate. Levante David had a forced fumble. The pass rush got there. I think what's most important for the Buccaneers for this game specifically, because they found ways to get to the quarterback. Vita Vea has been great. Kalijah Cansey's been great, at least over the past 2 games. There's no reason for that to stop. I hope it continues. but I still think the Bucs are at their best as a defensive unit when they are getting contributions from their edge rushers. Now, we know it's going to be Yaya Diaby. Is it going to be JTS? Will it be Chris Braswell? I'd like to see Braswell get in the mix a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd like to see Jose Ramirez get activated for a game or two. I mean, Marquise Watts is on injured reserve. Anthony Nelson, you know what you have. Why can't Jose Ramirez play a little bit? I do think this will be very important to get the pass rush going. If they have to do it with the blitz, fine. So be it. That's what Todd Bowles has done. But you better be ready in the pass coverage, because the last thing that you want is Tommy DeVito to have a little bit of confidence in a stadium that should be quiet for a majority of the game unless the Giants get a little something going. But once you get the crowd into it, you're going to have a lot of loud Italians going crazy for the boy DeVito. Tommy Cutlets are going to be lining up at pizza shops and pasta places and going to your local restaurants and your grocery stores, getting those chicken cutlets. You can't have that if you're the Bucs. You don't want to build hype. We saw what happened last year. And yeah, the Giants didn't make the playoffs. They weren't a good team, but they caught lightning in a bottle and they beat the Packers. That can happen again. Catching lightning in a bottle, taking advantage of a bad Bucs defense. It's not going to be a full crowd. The Giants stink. They are 2-8 for a reason, but you don't want to give them any glimmer of, hey, we can turn this around, because the players are pissed off right now with what's going on with Daniel Jones, with Drew Lock, with Tommy DeVito. But they may say, hey, F the coaches, we'll play for each other and get this done. You don't want that.
And, you know, they actually had some success with DeVito under center last year, Matt. Down the stretch, they went 3-3 with him.
Yeah.
And you mentioned kind of all the quarterback dysfunction right now in New York. You had quite the post today talking about Daniel Jones. He's not the quarterback anymore. So what's he doing out there? He's playing some safety in practice. Like, just a crazy situation.
Yeah, that was reported by some reporter for the Giants. I apologize. I don't recall the name at the moment. I think it's important to remember, like, it was a walkthrough part or the install part of practice. So it wasn't like Daniel Jones was running around being like, you got him, like, you know, jumping up and trying to make interceptions. But yeah, I just wanted to know. What are they, is he going to play Winfield? Or is he going to play Whitehead?
Yeah,
so
he has a speed to play play Winfield.
Payne Gusto, thanks for the $5 super chat. Not going to put it up there. Again, use of language, but nonetheless, thank you very much, Payne Gusto, for the super chat. We really appreciate that. And you also don't want Tommy DeVito to play well, because fans are going to be clamoring for his autograph at MetLife Stadium after the game, as he becomes an Italian-American legend and a hero, and fans that Italian-Americans can get behind. But if you want a different type of autograph, like you want to get a Pewter Report app, we're not going to have a full Pewter Report app, but you can follow us over on the Autograph app. It was founded by former Bucs quarterback Tom Brady on the belief that devotion should be rewarded and the future of fandom belongs to the fans. So Autograph is already what you do as a fan. It's reading blogs, listening to podcasts, watching breakdowns, all in one place, earning you rewards for every act of fandom that you do. So you download the app using the promo code Pewter, that's PEWTER, and it's a one-stop shop for all of your Bucs news. So it'll have Pewter Report, other Bucs publications. They have it for other sports too, so not just football. You can do it with the NBA, WNBA, MLB, fantasy football, and NCAA sports as well. So you could read Pewter Report news, watch Pewter Report news and videos and podcasts, and get rewarded all in one free app. It's great on Androids and iPhones as well, using the promo code Pewter, PEWTER. So shout out to our friends over at Autograph, and also a very special shout out to our Pewter Report YouTube channel members, the Pewter Platinum members. Thank you so much to Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, and Zach Jarvis. Thank you all so much for your support. We really appreciate that. And, of course, we'll have the Pewter Insider tomorrow at 1:30. So get your questions in, or please join us if you can. It's very much looking forward to that. Adam, before we wrap up the show, any final parting thoughts about this Bucs versus Giants game?
I think we covered it very in depth. One other point I just want to bring up is, so when you look at the game and the Giants, their front seven, how is the Bucs run game going to fare? And we kind of talked about it a little bit. And how are the touches going to be allocated? Because today, Liam Cohen mentioned the difficulty of getting 3 running backs involved, getting them 8 to 10 touches a game, and kind of brought up the discussion of tempo versus personnel. Like, you want to keep up the tempo and play fast. And it's hard to do that when you're swapping running backs in and out every single play. So I'm going to be curious to watch the running back rotation. Obviously, Bucky Irving averaging over 5 yards a carry. He's looked to be the featured guy. Rashad White's carved out a role. But will they get Sean Tucker more involved? I think that'll be a little bit of a storyline to watch for, as well as Mike Evans on the offensive side.
Yeah, that's true, because it was like, Todd Bowles said the other day, like, Bucky Irving's deserved more snaps. And then today, Liam Cohen's like, Sean Tucker should probably get a couple more snaps. So, how's that going to end up? And, Sean Tucker made this team last year as an undrafted free agent, kind of like he was a walk-on. Speaking of walk-ons, check out all their great food at several walk-ons locations.
Yeah, so what happened out there tonight?
We struck out at home with leftovers, then we remembered walk-ons.
What effect did the situation have?
Spirit soared. Nick took on a burger, Jen obliterated her ribeye po' boy, and speaking of spirits, Laura even scored a real tasty cocktail. She needed that.
Any lessons learned today?
Yeah. Head straight to walk-ons.
Scratch-made dishes, wall-to-wall TVs, craft beers, and cocktails. Walk-ons for the win.
Shout out to our friends at Walk-Ons. You can go to their happy hours today for some Thursday night football. They have it on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 6 and then 9 to close. Mondays, 3 to close. Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. And Tuesdays all day. So a lot of great deals over at Walk-Ons during their happy hour, like $3 happy hour pours, $4 house wines, and a lot of different starters from the fried pickles down to the boneless wings and the cheeseburger sliders. Also, the weekend's coming up. A lot of great college football. You got Ohio State against Indiana. That's one of the marquee games. They have fantastic specials on Saturdays and Sundays. So whether you're watching college football or the Bucs in the NFL on Sunday, they got Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, and Budweiser pints for $4.49. You could also upgrade, get the 22-ounce for $5.99. Also get $5 Heineken Silvers and $5 Neutrals as well. There's 3 walk-ons in the Tampa Bay area. There's one in Lakeland, one over in Wesley Chapel by Scott, and another in Midtown over by me, pretty close to Raymond James Stadium. So check out walk-ons today. Make sure you check out the Pewter pregame show and the game day show coming up on Sunday. We'll also have a Pewter Report podcast after as well, the Pewter postgame show, where we'll see if the Bucs can get back on the winning track. Also, make sure you're following us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment as well. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you on Sunday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.